Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Marcia Wessel, and on behalf of IntelliSoft Group, I'd like to welcome you to the continuation of our Dr. FBI series and our first webinar for 2018, MSP Career Builders, Opportunities and Choices. The program will be presented by Donna Gestencourt and is brought to you in collaboration with Team Med Global and sponsored by the Massachusetts Association of Medical Staff Services. For those of you who may not know IntelliSoft Group, we are a leading provider of credentialing, provider enrollment, and contract management software. We also have an NCQA certified CVO division that can help with either temporary or full-time assistance for a number of services, including PSV and enrollment. A few housekeeping items before we begin. The dialog box located on the right-hand side of your screen is very helpful for a number of reasons. For instance, if you find it difficult to hear the presenter, you might want to call in on the phone number displayed in the audio section of the dialog box because sometimes computer speakers aren't ideal for sound. Also, there will be a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. Because we have so many attendees, we request that you submit your questions in the questions section of the dialog box. And finally, the PowerPoint from today's program, Certificate of Attendance, and NAM CEU are all available for download in the handout section of your dialog box. Now it is with great pleasure that I introduce our friend and today's speaker, Donna Gestencourt. With over 42 years experience in the medical staff services industry, many of you may know Donna or have worked with her personally. And with that, I'll turn things over to Donna.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marcia. And Marcia, just from a housekeeping perspective on my end, on my screen, I am seeing a window that says attendees are still on hold. Do I disregard that? You're not seeing it on your end?
Nope, not seeing a thing.
Okay, I'll just continue to move on. So happy 2018 listeners. We have about 492 attendees joining us today. And I want to welcome you to the 4th annual MSP Dr. FBI series. IntelliSoft and I have worked together for over 10 years now, bringing to the industry complementary educational programs. And I'm happy to report that this Dr. FBI series has been our most successful series to date. Today's session is about building the MSP Career Toolbox. As Marcia said, my name is Donna Gestencourt. Hi, everyone. That's me on the screen. And as Marcia also mentioned, this is my 42nd year as of January, my 42nd year working in the medical staff services industry. And yes, I'm still around. The last 12 years, I've been working as a full-time healthcare consultant. You know, every year I kick off my MSP educational sessions with a program dedicated to needs, wants, and development of MSPs. Today's program will reveal facts, trends, and requests that I receive, observe, hear, share, teach, and implement across the country. The information I'll be sharing today will make some of you feel empowered, some feel kind of scared, some uncomfortable, and others excited. And truly, there are no judgments. We all have individual needs and desires, but I've always believed that knowledge is power. And when you have the opportunity to learn what shifts are taking place out there in the field that I see, you can choose what feels right to you, what culturally your organization is willing to be flexible and adapt to, what you know just won't work and you can toss, and then really how you can decide if you're ready to make adjustments in your position and career. And speaking from personal experiences, I always value so much when MSPs are willing to share their stories with me, their success stories, and even their stories where they feel that they have failed in some way. Or healthcare administrators or medical staff leaders that I've worked with are willing to share things that are going to be coming up, happening in their organization or in their community. I always felt by knowing this information, number one, they could trust me that I wasn't going to share it inappropriately, but I personally could noodle on this kind of information and be more strategic in how I was going to establish my goals or modify some of my practices or even do some outreach, because potentially there was going to be an organization that was going to be joining us. So I would make a point to do some outreach and just to introduce myself and say hi. So really, information is power, and I'm hoping that you're going to find that true after today's session. This slide, as many of you already know, participation in this year's tour of the Powerful Minds and Positive Partnerships, it really immediately makes all of you attending an MSP groupie. So please continue to support and follow the tour activities of your sponsor for this series, the IntelliSoft Group. The production and rock star presenters of TMed Global Consulting. I happen to be flying solo today, but oftentimes you know that I believe in collaboration and of helping others develop. So oftentimes I will have co-presenters, but today it will just be Donna Gessencore. I'm also asking you to support always your CEU suppliers for this particular series and in working with the IntelliSoft Group. So that would be NAMS and the Massachusetts Association. And it really is important to state that Marcia and I never, ever take for granted the support of you, our loyal listeners. Without you, we wouldn't even be able to have these webcast series. So we do appreciate it. So how am I going to be able to help your MS career today? Well, I am going to identify for you our core industry work environments, or what I like to refer to as our areas of specialties, both traditional and non-traditional. And I'll also be asking our listeners to participate in a poll by identifying their primary areas of specialty, but I will prompt you when it's time for you to participate. I'm also going to be revealing for you the core competency areas for MSPs. These competency areas that I'll be sharing are based upon a platform that I started when I started my consulting business that continues to evolve as our industry evolves. And also the shifting skills and characteristics that MSPs need to be successful. And then lastly, because change does create fear in many of us, I'm going to quickly remind you about the change process and how important it is not to let fear get control over you. So let's get started. You know, when I was preparing for this webcast today, I found this affirmation that I thought really told the story about how each of us approaches our jobs and our careers. So by attending today's webcast, you are already ahead of your knowing window than where you were yesterday. And you're also going to be learning insider information that makes you ahead of your peers who are unable to participate today, but just steps behind reaching really your dream position. So let's look at what I define as our industry specialties. As MSPs, we all have expertise in specific areas depending upon where our career journey has taken us. So I'm referring to those that have the highest population of MSPs, and that's going to be hospitals. In all hospitals, and what a contemporary reference would be the Medical Staff Services Department. So that's what the acronym stands for at the end of that first bullet. Another major, and these are more traditional industry specialties, would be the Credentials Verification Organization, or CVO. That, from my experience, has been the second largest population of our MSPs. And then thirdly, managed care organizations. Again, my experience has been that's where the next largest population would be, at the MCOs. And then newer to the industry, but is growing, are payer enrollment, specialty area, and then practice management. And the last two I'd say are I'm referring to them as traditional, because we're having more and more professionals in those areas join the NAMS organization and join these educational programs. So great opportunities for those of us working in those top 3 bulleted areas, that we do have other expanding career opportunities, and vice versa. I know colleagues who have worked in the hospital setting for a long time, and they're just wanting something different. Maybe they're starting to wind down in their careers, and they know that they've had a good relationship with those people in the practice management physicians' offices. So knowing that they have a payer enrollment or a credentialing position there, they're starting to step into that role. And that's why I think this particular webcast is so important, because we really have universal talent skill sets that really are transferable among these 5 key areas. But let's continue to look at this, okay, with regards to industry specialties. We have software companies who are reaching out to MSPs saying, I value your expertise, and I would really like for you to consider joining our team, because we want to understand our software product better from the user's perspective. So there is a population. Now these that I'm going to reveal on this particular slide, I don't have a fair gut reaction or data that says these are the next highest population of MSPs, but revealing these, I think, again, is valuable information about opportunities. So vendor representatives, I know, is continuing to be of interest to our software vendors and the accreditation organizations as well. Temporary staff, and what do I mean by temporary staff? I'm not meaning temporary staff in the reference to locum tenens physicians or other healthcare practitioners that are clinically driven. I'm talking about those of us who might be doing interim staff work through other agencies or independently, but that is becoming a larger percentage of MSPs who had originally worked in some of these traditional specialties, but again are wanting a bit more independence in their professional career. Then we have consulting. And with consulting, as I mentioned, I'm a full-time healthcare consultant. Some of us are doing part-time consulting or full-time consulting, but I think it's important for us to be recognizing that there are individuals, colleagues of ours, who are performing consulting in some capacity. And then a great and I don't want to say I don't have a statistic on this. It's just what I'm hearing based upon peer feedback and what I'm hearing needs are from clients. They're looking for more individuals, more MSPs that are willing to do remote work. And so I think that is also kind of correlates with consulting. Some of these projects can be done remotely, but it's time for us to recognize this group of individuals as performing a specialty. And then other. And what I mean by other is I've just listed for you 9 things that I'm seeing most prevalently in the medical staff services industry as opportunities to continue to expand your current position, or can you exchange from what you're currently doing and pursuing something in these other areas. Now I'm going to ask for your participation. I'm going to activate a poll, and it's going to be displaying for you what I just covered by these industry specialties. And I'm going to have to ask Marcia. Marcia, I'm attempting to select the poll. Would you be able to do that on your end? And it's poll
Sure,
question
let's
1.
check it out. Poll question 1. Select poll, question 1. Launch. Okay, I believe it's up there.
Okay, so with the use of your computers, please identify, even if you're in a group, just do what the majority. What is your MSP primary area of specialty? If it's a hospital, regardless of the type of hospital you're working in, please select A. If it's a CVO, a Credentials Verification Organization, select B. If it's a managed care organization, C. If you're in payer enrollment, D. And if you're in practice management, E. And if your current work environment isn't one of those, hold on, because we have a slide 2 to this. But we're going to go ahead and give this just a couple of seconds while we are waiting for people to respond. And Marcia, do you see the statistics there?
I do see the statistics here.
Okay, when you're ready, when you think we have the majority of respondents.
I'd say we're ready.
Okay.
67% are with hospital, 10% with CVO, 6% managed care organization, 8% payer enrollment, and 9% practice management.
Okay. So really the statistics, at least for the first 2, are matching with what I just described as the traditional role for MSPs. But from the statistics that we're revealing here, as far as the participants in this session, we have a larger population of listeners who are from practice management. And then the next area would be payer enrollment and then managed care. So again, what I'm seeing out in the industry is really being validated by the participants from the practice management area and the payer enrollment area. All right, so now if you could activate poll question 2, and there's only 2 poll questions for you today. Okay, so continuing on, what is your MSP primary area of specialty? If you're working with any kind of software vendor, please select A. If the primary responsibility is for you providing temporary coverage for other colleagues or with other organizations, B. And I specified part-time consulting to full-time consulting because I think it's important for us to get a sense about how many consultants who are listeners are on the call, because that potentially could shift some of our thinking. And then those of us who are already working remotely as basically their full-time job. And if anyone selects E as other, if you can jot in your dialog box what that other is, and I will be collecting that data and be utilizing it in future programs. Okay, so Marcia, when you think we have a good percentage, if you would please go ahead and give us a count.
Sure. 22% vendor representative, 9% temporary staff, 15% full-time healthcare consulting, 15% remote, and 41% other.
Okay, so those of you who have selected other, again, if you could use your dialog box and just enter what your current position is, because truly I use all the information that my colleagues share with me to try to help enhance our profession and provide additional education for our members, for our MSPs and our colleagues. So with that, I'm going to ask that the poll be closed.
Okay.
And do you think I should select my PowerPoint again because it's not showing? Okay, let me try that.
Your PowerPoint's showing. It's just, okay. There you go.
Okay, there we go. All right. So what was the reason of shedding this light? And really the reason is that our industry is changing. We're still going to be offering those traditional roles and opportunities, but it's changing just based upon the feedback that we got through this poll exercise, and it validates what I'm seeing in the field. Now, when we're talking about our core competencies as MSPs, and that we have all of these transferable skills, well, in my opinion, it really starts, excuse me, I'm going to fast forward because these were the survey questions. It really starts with our competency information, and I'm not actually seeing that slide here. Huh, do you have that slide? The it's slide 6.
I don't have that slide. Right now we're getting the poll is coming back. It must somehow.
Huh. Yeah, I'm not seeing that slide. So would you mind bringing up your PowerPoint, because this is such a critical component of this program, Marcia, and I hate for people to lose it.
Sure. Let me just.
And I'm going to continue to sort of navigate. So please disregard the distractions you're seeing on the screen, and if I can.
I just need to make the presenter me.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead?
No, I located it.
Oh, you did? So you're good.
Yep, I did. Okay, so reassure me that what you're seeing on the screen, Marcia, is actually the competency formula.
Yep, we get the competency formula.
Okay, and this is where I'm headed, colleagues. Everything that we do as MSPs, we're having to demonstrate how competent we are in our industry. And that competency formula is based on research that I did, that I continue to validate every year, but it really is the knowledge that we acquire, the skills that we continue to practice, and our ability to demonstrate our knowledge and skills. And that's truly what underscores our competence. But Donna, what is competence? Very easily. Competence is the quality of being functionally adequate or having knowledge, judgment, and skill to carry out a particular duty. Whether we realize it or not, we're consistently being critiqued on how we're performing our job. So as I mentioned 12 years ago, based upon feedback from the industry, I created this competency model based upon how efficient we are able to perform our skills, how effective we are in performing our interactions with others, and translating that into how we can use our skills and our ability to get along with others to drive our careers. Now, this is the slide that really identifies the top 15 competency skill sets that MSPs must have in order to expand their opportunity base. All of them end in management. I'm not going to touch on every one of these because you can certainly read these and study these yourself when you get the PowerPoint. But I think the important piece is to know that this, when I started displaying this screen and the core competencies 12 years ago when I started my business, there were 7 of them. We are now up to 15. So again, that's another measurement of how our industry indeed is changing. Some of the new ones that I've added, and I add this based upon industry surveys, would be enrollment, which, because we know based upon the participants today, that is becoming a larger component of what MSPs are doing. I added the on and offboarding process because we need to, whether they're employed practitioners or whether they're community physicians, we need to be collaborating with all of the other stakeholders and how we're bringing on a physician or a healthcare clinician, or when they're stepping away from being on your staff or participating in the employment opportunity at your facility. Another one is front desk management, which is specifically part of the medical practice management, because there are techniques that translate specifically to how effective and successful a physician's office is. It all starts at that front desk. And I think the last one that I want to touch on is the lean management, because more and more requests that I'm getting over the last, I think now it's been 4 years, is all about redesigning how departments are operating, how they can be consolidated with other departments while performing the best possible work products and work experience for that practitioner that might be joining your organization. So that, again, is really going to be an important slide for you all to be studying. Now, I'm going to take you into the skills. And in the slide program, I do want to make mention to you that there were slides after the traditional and some of the non-traditional about opportunities. I purposely fast-forwarded them in this slide program, but when you download your PowerPoint slides, study those, because those are going to be other career opportunities for you. What I'm seeing in a nutshell, what those slides project is that there is more specialization, in particular in larger healthcare academic centers, larger healthcare systems, where they have people who are dedicated to look at all red flags, people who are dedicated strictly to conducting audits, people who are dedicated to be the application guru. And I'm seeing that in physician offices as well. They have assigned an individual to complete all facility applications and reapplications because they understand the nuances of what's on those applications. So let's now focus on our skills. Donna, okay, what are some of the skills that I don't already possess that healthcare administrators and medical staff leaders are looking for in the industry today? And what I want to say is something that is sort of like the slam dunk, right, for all MSPs, because we're very type A driven professionals. We have detailed oriented. We must be detailed oriented in order for us to really map a practitioner's data and information they include on their application with the verification. And if there are any gaps or red flags, we want to be able to be proud that we identified those for our physician leaders and administrative leaders. We have to be organized. If we're not organized, chaos ensues. And almost every MSPs that I interact with while I'm in the field, they are organized. Now, to others external from their departments, it might look kind of messy in their office, but they know exactly what's in what pile. And I think that that's important. So long as your materials are well organized, so when someone comes in, you can put your hand on what's needed or find that e-file, that's going to be really important. They don't want, meaning healthcare administrators or physician leaders, they don't want to be asking a question for a document that in their mind should be easily located, and you're having to kind of put them off. So being very organized with your materials. Being a strategic thinker is also going to be really important, because healthcare organizations and leaders are wanting MSPs to understand the work that they are doing really does feed in to that organization's or that medical staff's strategic plan. So making sure you can, to the best of your ability, run a department, participate in a department that really works off of goals and objectives. And the graphic that I have on this screen, I think is important because emotional intelligence is a key component. And if you saw, and if you remember on my core competency model, I described skills, personal, and career. And that personal track really taps into all of these components that are on this circular graphic. Emotional intelligence really means that you have to understand how you're or why you are reacting in a situation in a certain manner and why other people are reacting the way they react. Because once you understand how you're reacting and you have an understanding where that other person's coming from, that's where opportunities and collaboration, that magic area there, is how progress can be made. So really having some insight into yourself and others, it's going to help guide your thinking, how you behave in future events, and it's going to give you greater confidence in taking actions and actions with purpose. So those are some of the skills, but there are more. And I didn't touch on these specifically during the slide that I showed you, those 15 core competencies, because I am seeing these more and more frequently being asked of me as a consultant. So if their organizations are going to be hiring for these services through my company, you as an MSP are getting this insider information that, hey, you know, maybe I need to better understand the technologies that are driving my operations. So I refer to this as technology management. I've even created in TeamMed Global a whole service line of technology management because what I see in the field is not satisfactory to many healthcare organizations. We have MSPs working in software. How lucky. There are still some of us who don't work with a software. They're managing all of this in Word or an Excel document. So knowing that we've been fortunate enough to have a software, many of us are using the software at a very elementary level. You're entering data, you're generating letters, you're generating some reports. But truly, technology management and really being proficient in the technologies in your office are going to make you even more valuable to your organization as well as others. So you have to understand how your software operates. You have to query your software so it generates the kind of information on your reports that's going to help you maximize the efficiency of your operation, provide the medical staff leaders with hard data as far as statistics, how many practitioners speak a foreign language, how many are board certified, what is the average age of a practitioner, because that type of information indeed helps the recruiters and the business planning of the types of recruitment that should be occurring in your organizations. But you have to understand by querying the report with the right fields and variables is critically important. Being able to navigate the web. We do a lot of our verifications electronically, but again, I'm speaking to you what I see in the field. What I see in the field is some people saying to me, gosh, I know that there's a way to verify the state license, but I'm not really sure how to do that. I go, no problem, let's sit down and I'll show you. But something as simple as that, and I know many of you on the phone might be thinking, oh my gosh, you know, who can't verify a state license? But it does happen. people are being placed into our positions without a whole lot of training and without previous experience. So we always want to be compassionate for those who are trying to do the job in a proper way. Another area is integrating automation. Okay, so you might actually even be the guru, right, in technology within your department or your organization. And that is great, but if you are not the guru and you're very proficient in performing your tasks electronically, think broader. What other tasks are we able to automate within our departments? Meeting management, communication with your medical staff leaders can be done electronically. ER call schedules can be prepared electronically. So there's lots of tools out there in the industry, but just always be thinking future on how you can bring value to your organization. But first, we as MSPs, we have to understand what's out there before we can, offer it as an idea. We don't have to be experts in all of these things, but having a working knowledge, again, just elevates the competence that we're projecting. And then using data. And this is one area of pushback that I do get from the field, from MSPs who have the benefit of having their quality departments or individuals who are doing medical staff quality. They generate all of the clinical statistics. That's fabulous, but still being able to interpret, what are you seeing? Don't just pass it off to the medical staff leader. You as the MSP, what are you seeing? How can you better understand how that doctor is performing? Because those physician leaders are relying on us, as well as the clinical person perhaps who've gathered that data. But we never want to be carving ourselves out of opportunities. We want to be collaborating with these quality practitioners. So the bullets that I have indicated under data is we have to make sure that the data that we're collecting is organized, that we're able to analyze the metrics that are being developed. And it doesn't mean we have to be an expert, but what's the bottom line telling us? And then we're going to have to help our medical staff leaders apply what they're interpreting with the options that are available and how we can improve practitioner performance or improve the management of our particular diagnosis. So the drill down with technology management. Another drill down area. I've just secured an individual with project management experience to my team because I knew while I was working on redesigns that I really needed to have that technical expertise of someone who truly had those credentials in being able to manage a project. Now, I don't need to go specifically into all of the elements that you're seeing on the screen. This is just a snapshot of what is involved with project management. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but please don't be intimidated by this, colleagues, because we're already managing lots of different projects. We might not be hitting all of the academic points of being a certified project manager, but perhaps doing a little bit of research into that area to understand maybe some of the pieces that are missing in your project management technique to, again, further augment and enhance the level of your competence. And the very last specific area I wanted to draw to your attention was lean management. This is an area that I'm interviewing for now, as a matter of fact, because, again, similar to redesign, I'm wanting to use individuals who have lean management experience to align it with what I know has proven to be effective redesign components within CVOs and medical staff services departments, because I'm wanting to back up my proven techniques with an academic perspective of the process of lean management. And again, really the basis of lean management is to analyze the work processes that are really currently being used, look for redundancy, identify how it can be improved, either bring stakeholders into the process or exclude stakeholders that really aren't contributing to the process. And that's about engaging the right people. So lean management, again, is another area where we as MSPs can do a little bit more research and learning about. And I know many organizations, particularly in quality, where they're, one of the baselines is for them to be trained in lean management. So that might be something that you can piggyback on one of your colleagues in the quality department. Now let's talk more about skills, specific skills that we want, right? What I'm seeing is more and more, as simple as a delegated credentialing agreement or an agreement that has been entered into by your organization with a locum tenens agency. In the past, we were just told that this is how it's going to be as MSPs, and we would make it work, not even understanding all of the parts. But as effective and diligent MSPs, we need to start asking for those copies of those contracts so we can truly adapt our practices that are compliant. So being able to understand how a contract is written to make sure that your organization and your department specifically isn't always being placed behind the black ball or the 8 ball, and to make sure that we take more of a partnership arrangement and we're not constantly doing duplicative efforts. So contract management is going to be important just so we have a better understanding about what we're reading. Troubleshooting. Research that I've done, troubleshooting, we've all heard how we can troubleshoot computer issues, troubleshoot a process, troubleshoot an issue a physician might come into our office with. We do that all day long, right? Put out fires. But because this process has become more sophisticated, they're now referring to troubleshooting as systems shooting, because every time we're addressing an issue, it's somehow related to a system problem or a system issue. And as MSPs, when a physician comes in and says, hey, I'm having problem with the ID badge gate reader in the garage going up, well, we pursue that by contacting security and make sure that that practitioner has all the authorities. But maybe there's even another component to this that we need to affect related to the system of that gate. So volunteering for projects, and I know sometimes we're feeling, and I know this is a reality, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. I can't be volunteering for projects. I can't be volunteering for my local chapter or my state organization. I hear that so frequently, but truly, everyone, including me, that I know has volunteered for community projects, for a work project, or for our organizational projects, they have learned something about themselves and it's increased their confidence. So I'm just asking you to please consider the possibility of volunteering next time someone asks, hey, I need help on such and such. Secure a mentor or a personal advisor. NAMS even talks about having a mentorship program. I know people reach out. 1/3 of my business is done altruistically because I want to give back to the profession that I so believe in. But I know these individuals don't know where else to ask these questions. I'm not saying I'm all-knowing, but at least I know who to go to ask questions to help. It doesn't mean that you can't start the queries out and the investigations out yourself. But if you get stuck, I'm happy to help or find mentors or research buddies that are willing to help each other. They help you, you help them. But really, it's another component of how doing that research even helps elevate your education in a particular area. Becoming certified, NAMS certified, is critical. I know our colleagues who are becoming compliance certified, becoming project management certified. So they're lean certified. So really, there's all different avenues that you can explore if you feel that you've reached your apex for NAM certification. Don't let that stop you if you truly have a desire of wanting some validation of the level of your knowledge. Actively participate. More and more hands are going up when I'm speaking at organizations or state meetings. When I ask how many of you give presentations at your credentials meetings or MEC meetings, there used to be one or two hands that would go up in the room. But over the last, I want to say good 2 years, a good third of hands go up. I always encourage people, get yourself out there and let your knowledge speak for itself. Give presentations, be an ongoing learner, and always, always network with others. Other skills that I think, or really the next component of this presentation is, okay, Donna, you've helped paint the picture of opportunities through our traditional and some of our non-traditional. You helped paint the picture of what administrators and healthcare leaders are looking for by way of competencies. But I know that there are some things that I can do to change, but I'm kind of afraid because I don't know. I don't know if this is really going to make a difference in the big picture of what I'm doing. And so I thought a component of this webcast today should really touch on the skills that we're trying to adapt or adjust, or our practices on how we actually do our work. What does this all mean to me, Donna? Because yes, I've heard some of these things before about things where our industry is going, but I've really not done anything about it. I get calls from people and say, Donna, help me. You know I'm capable of more. I don't feel that I'm stuck in my position, but it's like they don't see beyond what I'm currently doing. Or, gosh, Donna, can you please help me understand what steps I should take next? This is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. Just give me a little bit of clarity. And so that's really what this portion of the program is about. And I will share with you some real fears that I have had and sometimes still have as we evolve into our years of service into this profession. But anything that you're going to do is going to require change. And what is change? And to me, this first bullet really speaks the loudest about change. It's something that really pushes us out of our comfort zone, and that is true. Change can be for the better because not everything that's changed stinks or sucks. There are some things that change for the better, and we don't realize it at the time. We just know, oh, rats, I have to do this differently. But oh my gosh, this is so much better. Putting my ER call schedule on in an electronic program is so much easier than adding it to a Word document and having to constantly update it. So change can be for the better or the worst, but it just depends on how you view it. There is an adjustment period with change, and it varies by individual and by organization. For me, I am more apt to take risks, and sometimes I fail, or sometimes they don't go quite off the way that I had hoped, but I know for me, it's easier to take a risk. However, when there are these risks that are taken, there are these little voices that go inside my head, and I'm sure many of your heads like, oh my gosh, what did I do? So let's kind of talk through those fears that we need to expose and be willing to talk about with one another, because this is kind of a well-kept secret among individuals that we don't really want to let our work colleagues, and only you know the culture of your departments or organizations, if you can share something and make yourself as vulnerable. But if you don't have those work buddies, then reach outside. Maybe someone in your organization or a personal close friend that you can share these with. But it's time for us to no longer keep these things quiet if we can find a safe buddy to kind of share it with. So our first one that we'd like to expose is the fear of the unknown. And that is true. 12 years ago, when I decided to leave Christian Hospital in St. Louis after working there, almost 30 years, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? What if? I kept saying those things in my head. But I laid it all out, and I decided that if I truly believe in what I've been saying all these years, I need to put my actions where my mouth is. And I wanted to help my colleagues be the best that they could be. I wanted to elevate the perception of the medical staff services industry and all of these new partners that are joining our industry. And so for that, I had to squelch what I didn't know my future was going to be to what my goal and what I really wanted to achieve. So knowing that every time that there's a change, you're going to be afraid of something that's not routine to you. There's going to be a fear of failure. Yes, that was one of my fears, but not a strong fear. The fear of the unknown was a little scary. Fear of failure, no, because the only way you can try something, you might just as well succeed. You have to try it one way or the other, but just know, I'm speaking from my personal experience, fear of failure might be one of your core fears. So you have to take what I'm saying based upon my personal experience and, kind of align it with what you're feeling. Fear of success. Yes, there are individuals who continue to sabotage themselves. I have worked with a couple of MSPs who they have the smarts, they have the skills, they work well with people, but every time they try to make a recommendation, they just can't pull the trigger on it, or they've created a situation within that plan that is doomed to failure because there's a part of their psyche that really doesn't want them to succeed because, they're going to have to change then. There's a fear of rejection. That is true. And I'd say that's probably one of my greatest fears that came a long time ago when I was a little child. And I'll tell you just a quick story. I was 4 years old. I know exactly when this happened. I was 4 years old. I was getting my tonsils out. And I never had been in the hospital, and I was whimpering and crying to my mommy and daddy, "Mommy, please stay at the hospital. Please stay here." "Honey, it's okay. I'll be here when you wake up." And she wasn't. So ever since then, that little voice inside my head. Now, I'm a much stronger and confident person, but when I'm trying something new, that is something that comes to me about being rejected. Oh my gosh. Now, my mom didn't reject me. The hospital rules back then, you couldn't stay in the hospital. But it took me many years as an adult to recognize, hello, that wasn't a reality. But that still stays with me when I'm trying new things. So I love when people give me positive feedback and say, "Hey, what a great program it was, Donna," because then that little voice inside my head just goes to sleep. There is a fear of loss. Every time we move forward with a change, we're going to have to let go of something that we did so well, we knew so well, but push through it. Just as that definition said, we can think about it positively or negatively, because It may be the very thing that you're holding on to that's preventing you from changing, that will help you realize that there's an easier and better way of doing things. And then the fear of leaving your comfort zone. Every time I get up to present, every time that I'm doing a webinar, I'm leaving my comfort zone. But my drive to help share knowledge and information with my colleagues is far outweighed by any fear of working outside of my comfort zone. So again, this may be one of your real strong points, but knowing that these are realistic fears that we all have, I'm saying, please don't panic. It's okay. Many of these create anxiety for us, and that anxiety stems from self-doubt and not knowing what to expect. I've given you a couple of strategies on what I do on a couple of the fears that are more prominent with those soft voices in my head. And that took a lot of risk for me to do it, but that's how we all get better, is if we're willing to say, hey, we're not perfect. Okay, overcoming our fear of challenge. Well, overcoming our fear of change. Very simplistically, we have to recognize change is often hard. But if we do our homework and we make the best informed decision possible, things are working in your favor already. We have to recognize that we have to be human. We are human beings. We are not faultless robots, right? We have insecurities. We're human. Sometimes we have a bad day. Most times I try to have a good day, but we are human. So be kind to yourself and trust yourself. Trust your intuition. You know your information. You know it better than anyone. And ask yourself, okay, if I do this, what's the worst that can happen? Only you know that. Enjoy the process moving forward. There are going to be some fun things that you're going to do as a result of a change that you're going to make. Don't start out really huge by quitting your job. Make one small change in how you're going to approach seeking out a job. Is your resume updated? Do you have all of the tools in your tool belt? And then once you make that one small change, you have to recognize that change takes ongoing efforts, and you have to constantly take an action. And that will allow you to continue to pursue interesting opportunities that you have coming your way. So I'd like to ask everyone to kind of take a deep breath, because this was a lot of information. Take a deep breath and just digest this power thought. Nothing happens until you decide. I've shared all kinds of information, industry, insider information that I see happening in the field. But nothing that I've shared with you is going to change until you decide it fits you and you're ready for the change. So as Oprah says, make a decision of some type and just watch the excitement of your life move forward. So with that, I'm going to ask Marcia to sort of gather the first level of questions she can, because I know we only have a couple of minutes. While you're doing that, Marcia, I'm just going to reinforce that this Dr. FBI series is a joint collaboration effort between IntelliSoft and TMed Global. And I'm asking you to mark your calendar, because we are having a Payer Enrollment Institute series come through IntelliSoft as well. Our first session is going to be the education launch through this institute through IntelliSoft. And the date of that is a month from now, March 20th at noon Central. So I'm going to kind of keep the slide on there. And Marcia, any questions that come forward?
Yes. What is lean, and how do you find out more about it? Seems interesting.
Okay, it is. You can Google lean methodology, quality lean, L-E-A-N, just as I had it spelled. You can even type in lean green belt, lean black belt, because there are different levels of education and competence within the lean process. Lean process is another good thing to query.
Perfect. And then the next one, even though I have over 25 years experience in credentialing and medical staff services, my career has stalled because all the hospitals in my area now demand a college degree, which I lack. Do you have any suggestions other than trying to obtain a 4-year degree?
I purposely didn't reference the academic credentials in this PowerPoint because I did not want to be limited. I hear your situation. I hear this a lot from MSPs, and I can tell you that that is becoming a baseline for hospital credentialing or medical staff services positions. They do want at least a bachelor's. If you have some education and associates, I know that some human resource departments are willing to work with that. If you have NAM certification, sometimes they will trade that off with the college degree, but more and more people entering our industry are college educated, and that is the trend. It's not going to reverse, but you have a lot of experience, and maybe how your resume is aligned or formatted, maybe that's a way that you can position yourself more from that of strength with all of the years of experience that you have. Don't sell yourself short, but dealing with reality, we all have to do that.
Perfect. The next one is, do you have any suggestions on where to search for remote positions or other non-traditional roles?
Well, that's an interesting question. I, as a healthcare consultant, I'm getting more requests to provide remote workers. So I would say I don't want to encourage people to contact all the healthcare consultants, but perhaps, like the Mary Hardenberg Group or the Greeley Company, perhaps you can get on their roster of workers and just specify, that your preference is to do remote working. I can tell you larger organizations, managed care organizations, payer enrollment, do support remote workers.
Perfect. And then the woman who had 25 years experience but was finding it hard to find a position because she didn't have a degree. One of her peers is just telling her to be confident, and that what you're doing, and you can't substitute years of experience for a degree. So
I love it.
Kind of nice to have
It is wonderful, Marcia. Yes, it's wonderful to have a colleague support you in that manner, and that we all need that. We all need to have, right? As I mentioned, we all need to have sort of an advisor or some kind of a mentor. So when we're feeling a little insecure or gosh, I'm not sure, but truly that years of experience, because more organizations are hiring people who do not have the experience. There is a shortage of experienced MSPs out there.
And then we have a question about the NPDB, even though we didn't cover it in this webinar. It is required to put in as much information as possible to run an NPDB. Oh, is it required to put in as much information as possible to run an NPDB, or will minimum, i.e. name, address, date of birth, social security number, license information, be sufficient? I have heard mixed comments.
Yes, I at this time, I personally would not want to endorse either way, because I've seen in the field people doing it both ways. I would love to hear other people who might be on the call indicating their preference. As an MSP, more is always the better route, but we also have to be smart workers. And if the data bank will accept the minimal, you have to kind of weigh culturally or geographically what your colleagues are doing. But I've always been one to recommend that you enter as much information as possible.
Perfect. And another question. I have a non-related bachelor's degree and a CPCS certification plus 5 years experience. There are some areas of experience I'm lacking. For example, FPPE, OPPE, meeting management. How can I go forward and move into management?
Oh, that's cool. And by management, I think you're referring to those two functions, the meeting management and the FPP and OPPE. You may not personally have experience doing them, but that's exactly what my mapping of the core competencies, those 15 core competencies on that slide referred to. We have to have a working knowledge of those things in order for us to be marketable across all of our industry specialties.
Great. And then,
and may I also make one other comment, Marcia, for the person who just asked that question. If you're needing specific training that you cannot get, right? You cannot get internally, or because you're uncomfortable letting your colleagues know that you're wanting more information on those two areas, the OPP, FPPE, and meeting management, just give me a call. I'll be happy to help you.
And we are a little over, but there are a few more questions. In regards to obtaining a college degree, would you recommend healthcare administration?
That's what I'm seeing most. People who are coming into our fields, they have a bachelor's or they have a master's in healthcare administration. And so a bachelor's in business, I think, and a master's in, yeah, that's what I'm seeing most. Bachelor's in business, and then they realize, oh my gosh, you know, healthcare administration is really what I'm doing. Then they pursue their master's. But hey, you know, why not start that as your first line of education, healthcare administration?
Okay, we got two more questions. I've been doing onboarding credentialing for 9 years at an FQHC entity and have limited experience in payer enrollment, hospital and or managed care. What would you recommend as the primary area to seek out to go to the next level? A temp staffing agency or direct employment at a hospital, MCO, et cetera?
I can tell you that the Greeley company just posted some sort of a position for a director for payer enrollment, and I know that's not something you're asking, but if you're needing the education, maybe contacting a health plan, like a health insurance plan, letting them know that you would love to collaborate or work with someone who can educate you on that payer enrollment process. And I thought there was a part 2 to her question. She said, what would be the recommended next steps? I'd say reach out to a colleague who does payer enrollment, or a hospital where payer enrollment is being done. Get to know your MSP at that hospital and say, hey, I'm trying to expand my knowledge base. Contact a physician's office who is doing payer enrollment, a credentialing specialist who's doing payer enrollment. That would be another. It's really, you guys, what you're doing here, just by these questions, we're helping each other out, right? We're not trying to hoard the information. We're trying to say, hey, I know this, but I don't know this. And maybe you can make a trade-off with a colleague who has expertise in payer enrollment, and you can kind of fill them in on the aspect or the functions that you're performing.
And then the last one is more of a comment about the MPD question.
Oh, yay! I was hoping.
After having a conversation with a rep from NPDB once, he suggested that as much information as you know should be a part of your query. This helps to ensure the search lands on the right provider you're looking for.
Yeah, good. I appreciate that feedback. And there again, another example of how we've helped one another. You know what, Marcia, I was thinking, I mean, this call started with, I don't know, however, we had 492 people registering for this program. There might be an opportunity for us to just have a straight Q&A because the questions could go on and on and on, and this is how we learn from one another, is throwing the questions, whether they're skills related, career related, or interpersonal related. So I'm going to noodle on that and work with Marcia and see if that might be something of interest. Hey, that's a risk. We don't know if we don't try, right?
That's right. Absolutely. And then someone else asked about the slides. Just to repeat, the slides from today's webinar, they're in the handout section of the dialog box on the right-hand side of your screen, as well as the certificate of participation in NAND CEU. So head into the handout section and download those 3 documents.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, all of our listeners, for hanging on. We've had lots of people hang on all throughout the questions. And thank you, Marcia, for kicking off our 2018 with your wonderful smile that comes through that phone.
Thank you, John. I'm so excited to be doing this with you again this year.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.